Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Christine and today I'll show you how to paint a floral wreath using a color palette pulled from a photo reference. Before I start, a short intro to the materials that I use. This is my 9 by 12 inches block watercolor paper, and I just want to point out two properties that I watch out for. First is that I always choose white cold press paper because I like painting on the rough surface. If it's not rough, it isn't fun. Second is that I look for at least a 300 GSM or grams per meter squared weight of the paper because it holds the water really well with minimal warping even when I take the sheet off the block, because I also paint on the other side. I have 2 jars of water with me, one for rinsing warm colors and the other for rinsing cool colors. I also have a paper towel with me. Next, we move on to my palette, which I cleaned specifically for this video because we're going to make a swatch. When I started, I only had the following colors: Opera Pink, Scarlet Lake, Orange, Burnt Sienna, Yellow Ochre, Yellow Deep. I didn't have a lemon yellow before. I had Prussian Blue, Mineral Violet, Turquoise Blue, and Sap Green. These are Shinhan Art watercolors that I bought from Artwhale.Ph. Some of these are from the PwC Extra Fine watercolor line, while the others are from the less expensive Shinhan Professional watercolor range. I can't really tell the difference except that the PwC ones come in this nicer foil packaging and are slightly smoother to apply. I started out with these colors, and as you can see, I've used up only a tiny bit even after 3 years, so they're a really good investment. I'm going to reference the colors from this Pinterest photo to create my palette. The first thing that draws my attention is the red-orange color of the leftmost spice. I use orange for my base, but I think it also has a little bit of yellow ochre in it, so I mix that in. Next is the darker, shadowy areas of that reddish cayenne. It could be paprika, but let's pretend it's ground cayenne pepper. I mixed the burnt sienna to deepen the orange and the reds. Beside that is what looks like cumin, so I used yellow ochre diluted with a lot of water. You can forget about buying white watercolor pigment. Your white or your highlights will be your paper and water. I see that the powdered spice is also tinted with green, so I mix a tiny bit of sap green in there. For the bright yellow powdered spice, I use deep yellow with a little bit of lemon yellow. And then in the last spice, I see deep dark violets, but I think it has a warm tone, so I mix in burnt sienna with my blue and add more of the mineral violet until I'm satisfied. It's not very noticeable in the superimposed smaller photo, but I see some reddish purple mixed with the dark violet, so with all the pigments still in my brush, I swipe a bit of the Scarlet Lake and add it to my swatch. The leaves are predominantly warm sap green with ochre, but some are in shadow, while others have this cooler dusty underside showing through. I decide that I will use sap green mixed with black and just water it down when I need a lighter shade. Lastly, I'm adding the color of the surface, which I see as warmly tinted black, so I mix black with the burnt sienna. So there you have it, we've completed our swatch. We can focus less on choosing colors while we're painting and more on the actual elements that we're painting. For this piece, I know that I want an elliptical wreath, so I just have to be mindful of that as I go along. I always start with my main flowers first and work smaller accents around them. I chose our reds to be the color of the first flowers that I'll be painting. I start with the dark center of the flower from which the petals would fan out. I'm slowly pulling from that, borrowing from the color of the darker center. I add some leaves to immediately guide me with the shape. I paint some darker leaves and lighter ones too, intentionally letting colors bleed into each other for the effect that I just love. Interspersed with the leaves, I want sweet pea to burst out. The individual petals of the sweet pea will provide some break from the fullness of the first flowers. I think it's more interesting that way, instead of a wreath that just looks heavy with the same flowers over and over. It could work in some designs, but I like breaking the monotony this way. They're gonna have dark centers, and then I'll paint the petals with a watery brush stroke, sometimes letting it touch the dark centers and the still wet leaves. I change my brush depending on the effect that I want to achieve. Again, I'm consciously changing the colors that I use. It's not going to be consistently violet. It's gonna have lilacs, purples, lavenders through the amount of water that we add. I go back to my florals to define it some more, maybe giving it a yellow tint in some areas. I want to add dark leaves next. You'll see me going back to previously painted areas to spread out the current color that I'm using. It makes the painting look more cohesive this way. I thought maybe some of the branches would be bare. Going back to my reds, I thought maybe we can have some of the same flowers, but this time they haven't blossomed yet. So I'm starting this time with the dark color for the tip and pull away to create the rest of the bulb. Now it's time for the tiny flowers. They're like the backup singers, making the star sound better and more melodious. Pretend that I know what I'm talking about. Some of them will have darker yellows while some will be paler. Maybe tiny leaves will accompany them too. I'm ready for the richer color of the stalk flowers next. I paint them the same way that I did the sweet pea, but this time keeping in mind that they are bunched tightly together closer to the middle stem. To paint the rose, I use a darker color for the center and then barely top up my brush with more pigment for the petals. I want another bud beside it and let the colors bleed there. By now, the wreath is almost complete and sufficiently laden with flowers. So maybe the remaining spaces should be populated with fillers, tiny flowers, wiry stems, leaves, and buds. Taking a step back, I decide that some areas look too sparse or need some touch-ups, so I go back and add more details where I think it's lacking. I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I really hope that you learned something from me today. Feel free to try it out and experiment with different photo references. Till the next video, bye!